Good afternoon, Brown community, and everyone else tuning in today from wherever in the world you may be. It is my enormous honor to welcome you to the sixth in our series of Brown Fashion Week Talks, which are being broadcast live from the beautiful campus of Brown University here in historic Providence, Rhode Island. I'm Sasha Pinto, the president of Fashion at Brown, and today we are exceedingly fortunate to have Francesca Bellettini joining us from Paris, who is, of course, the president and CEO of what is arguably the most prominent fashion house of the 20th century, Yves Saint Laurent. Francesca Bellettini is an Italian national who has had an absolutely fascinating journey in the fashion industry. After graduating from Bocconi University in Milan with a degree in economics and business administration, Ms. Bellettini started her career in London as an investment banker, working at Goldman Sachs International, then Deutsche Morgan Grenfell, and Compass Partners International. In 1999, she made the jump out of finance and into the world of fashion, joining the business development division of the Prada Group, and then made another jump to Helmut Lang as their operations manager. In 2003, she joined the Paris luxury group, 𝐀𝐁𝐎𝐿, that owns Saint Laurent, Gucci, and Bottega Veneta, as their strategic planning director and the associate worldwide merchandising director of Gucci. And 5 years later, she moved to Bottega Veneta, becoming their worldwide merchandising and communications director in 2010. And then in 2013, she was invited by the chairman and chief executive of 𝐀𝐁𝐿 to take over as the president and CEO of the revered fashion house of Yves Saint Laurent. And according to the New York Times, Francesca Bellettini was his one and only choice. And since her arrival at Yves Saint Laurent, Francesca Bellettini's leadership has resulted in astronomical growth and record-breaking profits. She has established a company culture that fosters creativity, authenticity, and agility, while remaining true to the core values and legacy of the house. And in recognition of her leadership of this iconic Parisian company, Francesca Bellettini, an Italian national, was awarded the highest possible distinction for a civilian in France, the Knight of the Legion of Honor. And so on that note, it is my enormous honor to welcome our esteemed guest, Ms. Francesca Bellettini. Hello, Ms. Bellettini. Welcome.
Hi, hello, I was just checking if everything was working. Thank you so much, Sasha, for inviting me and for your amazing presentation. I was like, wow. I feel frightened.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. And I just like to start by saying how incredibly generous it is of you to be here at Brown Fashion Week. We are so honored. So
it's an honor for me, really. It's a pleasure.
Well, so how is everything in Paris? I understand the city was considering a lockdown.
Yes, thank God. We are in curfew at the moment at 6 o'clock. In fact, I will have my attestation to go home because I'm making this video call from the office, but thank God they didn't confine us over the weekend, because this was the threat that we had, that basically they were going to confine us back full over every weekend. But so far, the Parisian area is not like that. So of course we have no restaurants open, no bars open, the shops are open, but we basically work. We have no social life.
Same here at Brown, all work, no fun. But,
I think it's the same.
Yeah, well, hopefully things turn around everywhere and then better days are just around the corner.
Yes, I really hope so. I really hope that, we proceed very fast all over the world with getting safer, with vaccination, and soon we can go back to traveling and meeting people. And next time I will be able to come in person.
Yes. Well, we would love to have you visit us in person. That would be wonderful. And now I'm happy to introduce the students who will be serving as the moderators for our talk today, Emma Rosencrantz and Linnea Hult. So Linnea is a Swedish-American student from London in her freshman year at Brown. She is an arts enthusiast who has studied Italian for the past 2 years and spent the last semester in Florence. And
Oh,
Emma
wow.
Rosenkranz, yeah, I know, Fashion of Brown's wonderful vice president, is a sophomore from New York City studying literary arts and interested in double concentrating in business and entrepreneurship. And in her spare time, Emma writes poetry and narratives and has co-founded an e-commerce jewelry business. Wow. So with that, please join me in welcoming Emma and Linnea to the Zoom stage. Hello, Emma and Linnea.
Hello, Sasha. Thank you so much. And hello, Miss Bellettini.
Oh, hello.
Wonderful.
Very
So
nice to
now that we're all here, I will sign off and leave you to get started. So bye for now, everyone.
Thank you, Sasha. As Sasha said, we feel so grateful for your time and just truly honored to be talking to you today.
Yes, thank you so much. How are you today?
I'm good, and I am the one really being grateful because this year, basically the only time I do interviews or meeting like this, I only have had this kind of interactions with my team and the employees of Saint Laurent, because it was very, very important to stay close to each other. So I didn't do any conferences or interviews. So while I really miss it because I love to talk to students like you are, I find these opportunities to be incredibly exciting, and I always learn, and I get a lot of stimulus coming from you guys. So I am the one thanking you for this opportunity, really.
Well, we feel so special. And to start off our talk today, we wanted to go back to the beginning, back to the start of your career. So tell us about that, and when did you know you wanted to go into fashion?
Well, now it's many years ago. It looks like ages. But, well, in reality, I didn't know I wanted to go to work in fashion. I wanted to do many different things, but what I knew is like I wanted to run a company. This was really my dream since I was quite young, I would say. But I wasn't really clear about which company, in which industry. That was not important when I was young. I knew that because I was looking at my brother-in-law that I love, and is the husband of my older sister. And he and his father had a small company in Cesena, where I was born. And he was traveling around, and he was coming back telling all these stories about travels and business. So I said, okay, that's a job I would love to have. One day I want to run a company. But it wasn't really clear to me which industry. I loved fashion. I love beauty because I'm Italian, and you know, you're born in a country where fashion is one of the most important industries. So you're surrounded by that, and also the region where I come from is quite famous for. It's a sort of industrial district, not for high fashion, but more for street fashion. So it's something that we kind of have in our course, but that wasn't really a goal. Was more really running a company. So after university, after high school, in reality I had a double plan. Once was going to study in Bocconi, and you had to do an exam in Bocconi to get in and study in business administration. But the sort of backup plan was study mechanical engineering in Bologna to become to go and work at Ferrari, but really on the racing track. Really changing the wheels and all of that. And that is very typical me, because I never have a plan B that is a watered down of plan A. Plan B is another exciting plan. So I didn't know at that time that would have been my life, but then it had become my life. I have a plan A, that is what I'm trying to do first, and then I have a second option that is never like, okay, then I go and study business administration somewhere else. So since it was either Bocconi in Milan or mechanical engineer in Bologna. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, now I'm running a fashion company and I'm in the board of Ferrari. So like you can see, it was not planned, but in the end, the original thoughts kind of happen in a way. So I was accepted at Bocconi, so I studied business administration. And in my last year, I was an exchange student at the University of Chicago in the MBA. And there is where I learned exactly what investment banking was and meant. And I thought actually that that was, even if I had the goal to run a company, I thought that as a first step, going into investment banking was gonna give me the opportunity to see different industries and to stay close to company when they take strategic decisions, like going public or doing mergers and acquisitions. And so I applied when I came back to Bocconi to some investment banks, and I got an offer from a couple of them, and I chose Goldman Sachs because at that time, Goldman Sachs was the only one that was not public, and it was a partnership. And I felt a sort of very strong culture and almost like a family kind of spirit. The culture was really, really strong there. So I joined, I had a fantastic time, and I joined in a moment when actually the fashion industry was flourishing. It was a moment when Gucci went public. Before that moment, fashion was not, as an industry, very dynamic or very much considered by people after university or after MBAs. While in that moment, it started to become famous in a way, also from a management standpoint. It was more an industry that was considered if you were a strong creative person or very strong in production. With a business administration background, it was not that popular to go and work in fashion. So in those years, instead, it started to become relevant. And in particular, in Italy, we had a lot of companies with a problem of a succession, a family-owned company, where the entrepreneur was supposed to have a succession planning. And so I thought that could have been a very good opportunity also for banking, because when an entrepreneur is deciding what to do with the company and what is the future of his company, it's a moment where they think about mergers and acquisition or IPOs. So I prepared a pitch that is a marketing presentation. I mean, I'm sure that you're familiar with that you do in investment banking, and I proposed it to one of the partners of the bank. He liked it, and so we started together to approach several entrepreneurs in Italy to propose future strategic moves, mergers and acquisitions or IPO. And it happened that one of them was Mr. Bertelli of Prada. So the more I digged into the industry and I started to know the company, the more I liked it, because what was attractive of fashion was the fact that there was a strong creativity aspect, but then had to become a business. So where both the creative part and the business part were very important. And the more I was talking to him and talking to the other company owners that I met, the more I started to feel that I would have loved to work in the fashion industry. But I didn't know exactly what I could do for them, because I thought I was more generalist. Well, one day he called me and he offered me my dream job, which was join Prada. And actually, now that we have made the acquisition, you can join the team that is helping me in integrating the companies that we have acquired. And so I found myself in front of a tricky decision, because I had to leave banking. My salary was going to be cut in half compared to what I was making. But at the same time, I was only 29 years old. Mm. And in that moment, I was super lucky, because next to me, there was my father, who very honestly told me, Francesca, you are only 29 years old, follow your heart. It's too early to make choices based on money. I mean, you can't, you're only 29. And so I jumped and I joined Prada, and it has been the best business decision I took in my life and for my career. So I started to work in Prada, and then from there, like Sasha described before, I joined the Gucci group at that time, now Kering Group, in 2003, and then Gucci, and then Bottega, and Saint Laurent, and here I am today. So I hope that everybody is lucky in life to be surrounded by people that at the right time give you the right advice, people that you really trust. And I know that phone call that I made to my father, and when I was walking in the street of Milan, because I was like, what do I do? It made me feel very comfortable with the decision of abandoning a certain financial security that for sure I had more in investment banking at that time than in Prada.
Yes, I mean, that's incredible advice. And obviously you've just described your extensive experience from Bottega Veneta, Gucci, Helmut Lang, and Prada. What hurdles and bumps did you face along the road?
Well, in reality, the biggest mistake that you can make in your career is not to take decision because you are afraid of making mistakes. I actually had to work on it because I tend to be a perfectionist. So I was very scared at the very beginning to make mistakes. And this creates a problem because then maybe you are not fast enough in taking decisions, or you don't trust other people because you have the wrong belief that by doing things on your own, you control them better. And at least if you make a mistake, it's your fault. That's very wrong. You need to learn this at the very beginning because making mistakes is super normal. And actually, even now when I look back, and there are many mistakes that I made, and we make them regularly, also because you don't make mistake because you want to make a mistake. You make mistake because maybe you take decisions and you don't have all of the information, or you simply take the wrong decision. But very rarely people make mistake in purpose. That would be diabolic, you know. You know, take a decision. Today I want to make a mistake, so I take this wrong decision. It happens. But in reality, every mistake has been an occasion to learn. And what for me is important when me or the team or all together we make a mistake is to analyze when we realize we made it, why, what happened, to make sure that we don't repeat it. So in reality, all the mistakes that I made in my life or in my career have made me the person that I am today, and have brought me where I am today, and gave me the experience and the knowledge that I have. So the biggest mistake you can make is really being afraid of making one. The one that I remember, because it was a very specific moment where I learned a very important lesson for working in fashion, actually happened very early in my career. I found myself in a meeting with the creative director, the CEO, and the creative director was presenting, and I was not even head of merchandise, I was a much junior person. So it was very early in my career. And the creative director was presenting the collection to the CEO. And we were looking at all of the different categories. And at some point, out of the blue, I opened my mouth and said, I really like that. And the creative director suddenly turned to me and said, why, you didn't like the rest? Mm-hmm. In that moment, I felt horrible. I learned that I had opened my mouth really in the wrong moment. I learned that I wasn't able to read the situation because that was an important situation for the creative director in front of the CEO. And you need to understand the creative director has a lot of pressure when they present the collection, because I always say also to the team, I mean, the creative team has to present something that makes us dream and that we all want to buy, but they start from a white piece of paper. So for whoever is on the business side, it's very easy to become judgmental and say what you like or what you don't like. But the reality is that nobody cares in fashion about what you like or you don't like or about your opinion. It's a very superficial comment. So I learned it very early, and that is an advice that has helped me a lot in the future in my career, in particular when I was a merchandiser, in respecting a lot the designers and as a CEO really to build a very authentic and respectful relationship with the creative directors, really understanding the kind of pressure that they have, and also the fact that really if you want to work in fashion, your taste and what you like or don't like is a too superficial comment.
And that's so beautiful. I mean, your journey is so beautiful, and it takes such an integrity to, like you said, go for plan B. And although maybe you had this bump along the road, it is important to mention that during your tenure as CEO, YSL has achieved immense financial success, including reaching the sale goal of 2 billion euros in sales. So your advice really for not being fearful, I think will resonate with a lot of students that are watching today and anyone else tuning in. So what would you consider are the secrets to success in general, but also the secrets to your success?
Well, for sure for us at Saint Laurent, but I think this is valid in general. The secret of our success has been to have a very clear strategy and a very meticulous execution. It would be very difficult to say what is more important between the two, because if you're too focused on execution and you don't know where you are going, you are lost in the details and you reach nothing. While if you only have a beautiful strategy, but you don't know how to execute it, it remains a beautiful dream. So the success comes when your strategy is clear and set. You make no compromise in fashion, in my view, in your positioning and on the DNA of the brand. And then you really work on executing your strategy very well, knowing what are the priorities, because you always have a lot of things to do and a lot of things that you would like to change or do differently. But if you don't give and you don't prioritize, you risk of creating too much stress on the organization. So the role of the CEO is also the one to know what you need to focus on the most and what to prioritize. Because if you are a person that considers everything always important, always equal, the organization is under too much pressure. So it's super important to clarify the strategy with the team and then to work on the execution, prioritizing the different steps and clarifying the organization in a way that the organization is something very agile that helps the behaviors, building the behaviors of the people. Organizational structures are not simply a piece of paper with some squares and names of people, are not a sum of titles. They really need to help people navigate in the organization and helping relationships and also priorities. So this is what we did at Saint Laurent. The moment I arrived with my team, we grouped together and we prepared the first plan for how to take the company at 3 billion. And we were 500 million at that time of revenues, and our EBITDA was 13%. So very too low for a company of our size and too low a revenue for a company as Saint Laurent. So we sat down and really understood what were the strategic axes, but in particular the positioning that the brand was supposed to have. And then we really started to work on the execution and reorganizing also the structure of the company to make sure that we could move fast. This meant for me giving more autonomy to the president of the regions that before were not reporting to the CEOs, but they started to report directly to me, because for me, whoever lives in the region are basically my eyes and my arms in the region itself. Reorganizing the production of the company, we reorganized the production in business units so that there could be the focus on each category. And at that time, my COO was actually overseeing all of the operations and production and a little bit of the client service. And very recently, actually during the pandemic, we changed the organization. And now my COO is focusing on people and customers, because we have worked a lot on the production and the logistics. Now that part works pretty well. And now becomes really the priority to focus on the engagement of our employees. That was always a priority, but equally important as the engagement with the customers. So we never changed our long-term strategy. We actually also during this year reworked on another plan at a much longer revenue goal, because when you reach 2 billion, I consider it too short and too little to have a full potential plan at 3. So we worked on a much bigger full potential during this year, confirmed the strategic position of the company, and now refocusing on execution, short term and long term. So yeah, clear strategy and meticulous execution for me is the right receipt for success.
Yes, and that would be obviously something that is heightened and becomes more difficult, as does everything this year particularly. What strategies are you using to attempt to mitigate the damage done by the pandemic? And what did you see as the biggest challenges to the luxury industry before the pandemic? And do you think they've changed or will change post-pandemic?
Actually, thank you for this question, because this year of the pandemic has given to us the opportunity to apply a principle in which I strongly believe, which is focus on the thing you can control. And there hasn't been a year where this mantra has been more relevant, because there has been so many things outside of the company that we don't have control of, and we cannot have control, that trying to master that was gonna put us in trouble, depress us to death, and making us see no end and no future. Instead, if you were refocusing on the things you could control and refocusing on your organization, like I told you before, we grouped and we redid a new strategic plan at full potential, much bigger than the 3 billion, because for me it was important to remain agile, stay very close to the team, and make sure that the long term was very visible, because if we were staying focused on the day-to-day, it was really difficult, because every day was a challenge. And if you remain focused only on the challenges that this coronavirus had brought and this economic crisis has brought, it would have been very difficult to remain optimistic. So for us, it's been very important to stay focused on the future. This is only 1 year or 2 years in the span of a life. That is much longer than that. And then decide to focus really on the day-to-day and the things we could control, reassessing our distribution, for example, giving more weight to retail and actually refocusing our wholesale distribution. Like I said, the organization. And last but not least, the people. My first worry this year have been my people and my team. I'm very proud because we have been able not to fire anybody. Everybody at Saint Laurent has kept their job. But we didn't hire a lot of people. Apart from the new stores, we still open. And in order to be able to do that, this has required a lot of agility from the team, because as you can imagine, the business model had to change. At some point, we had all the stores closed and only e-commerce was working. And we found ourselves with an overcharge of phone calls, for example, to our customer service. So in that moment, I asked to some of the employees of the stores to go and work, to be trained for a few days and go and work in the customer service. And they accepted. And actually, some of them now like that job better than working in a store. But if people instead are rigid and they're not open to this kind of changes, what the company was supposed to do was to hire people for the customer service and maybe laying off people in other areas of the company. But I didn't want to do that. But my team was incredibly helpful and understanding and agile in order to make sure that we could all be protected and go through the crisis together. Actually, after this year, I think we are even stronger and more united. So I'm very happy about this.
And you talk about what you can't control. And sometimes when things are so out of your hand, you have to take that plan B, that other road. You have to be creative. And in December, YSL announced their summer collection. It was a catwalk on a sand dune, which was absolutely spectacular and so out of the ordinary and creative. And the location, it brought glamour to a virtual viewing that is just, over Zoom. So how do you think the pandemic has changed the direction of the brand, if it has? And is there a fear that high fashion will lose its relevance as we're all at home right now?
No, actually, it's the contrary, because I think that with this pandemic, our duty as a fashion industry has become even more clear. We are here to offer an escape. We are here to make people dream. We don't sell anything that people really need to satisfy a real, material need, but we do everything to satisfy an emotional need. So you talk about that show that Anthony did that has been spectacular. Actually, I heard so many people that keep watching it in loop. Because to me, it had an effect that really took me in another place. When Anthony shared it with me, it was one evening, and then I went to bed and I woke up in the morning and I had to watch it again, because watching that show and hearing that music, and first of all, you could immediately understand it was Saint Laurent even without looking at the Cassandra logo in the sand. Yes. That was, of course, amazing, but it was Saint Laurent. Couldn't be anything else even before that. And it was really taking me in a place where I was feeling much better than in my daily life of a curfew in Paris. So this has actually clarified even more what fashion and luxury are. We are here really to make people dream and to make people feel part of a community, of sharing our values as a brand, and to take us to those places, at least with our mind, even if we cannot go physically for the moment. So no, I think that the role of high fashion is absolutely relevant. And actually, fashion companies should not forget about what is our role and not lose it. And remember that we have to put creativity at the center, let creativity free to shine, because when you let it shine, this is what comes out. So, of course, I'm very lucky because I have an incredibly talented creative director that is able to do these things. But when you have that, you need to let it shine.
Yes, and I think it's so inspiring hearing you talk about watching that video, because you're so evidently connected to the brand. And I think that the high fashion industry notoriously struggles with aligning the creative desires and the business desires. How have you been so successful at this?
Well, this is partially comes from that famous mistake I told you about, where I really understood the position in which a creative director finds himself or herself. That is very critical. It's under a lot of pressure. We talk about the pressure of the CEO, but not being a creative person, I think the pressure of a creative director is even bigger. And I was successful in the relationship with all the creative director I worked for, because the relationship is based on trust and a lot of respect, mutual. I respect what Anthony does. I trust him 100%. I'm not a CEO that stays on the neck of creative people, wanted to know what they do, or what are you gonna put in the collection, and what is the next show. I'm not here to create additional pressure. Anthony and I agree on the strategy of the company. Anthony's sensibility is very much in line with what is the DNA of Saint Laurent. And when Anthony was chosen for Saint Laurent by me and Francesca Bellettini, and he accepted to come, it was really because of that, because his sensibility is very much naturally in line with the one of the brand. And I trust him a lot, respect him a lot. He's the first person I call myself when I have to take a tough decision. We have our important decision. We have very open and very natural conversations. We don't do a lot of structured meetings, but we speak to each other very often whenever there is a need, with any means. And it has to be authentic, the relationship. I don't like it when people talk about freedom, because I don't give freedom. Because for me, when people say give freedom, means that you also have the power to take it away. That is not a concept that I really like. And I think that the word trust and respect are much more powerful, and for sure better to describe the relationship that Anthony and I have, and that I have had with all the creative directors I've been working with before. So I never had a position of conflict. That doesn't mean that you don't speak about everything, but when there is trust and respect, you can discuss anything, you know.
That's so beautiful. And looking at the time, we would love to move on to our Q&A section of this talk. We received pages and pages and pages of questions, so it took a little bit of time to cut them down. But our first question comes from Lauren Tate. She's studying economics at Yale University. Her hometown is Connecticut. And she asks, I understand you didn't speak French when you accepted the position at YSL. How did that impact your ability to work in an organization headquartered in a country known for its pride of language?
I still don't speak French, by the way. I understand everything. I speak a little bit, but given that my boss, Francesca Bellettini, whenever I try to speak French, starts laughing, it's not very encouraging, you know. So did that impact my work? But in reality, I was so happy for the opportunity, and and to come at Saint Laurent. That is actually the only question that I asked to François when he offered me the job. I said, you know, I don't speak French, right? And he said, yeah. And I saw him being very okay with that. So I'm like that. Sometimes I really like to take the risk. I didn't see the problem. I mean, I'm Italian. We speak with our hands. I would have figured it out. I mean, the language was the least of the problem that I had. I was jumping on a plane, coming up and living in Paris. And I have to say that all the people around me have been incredibly nice because they all speak English. I was also very open when they don't speak English to let the people speak French. And that's why now I understand. In certain organization that I joined, instead, rightly so, like Fédération, they just spoke French and they didn't care that I didn't speak French, which I find very right because it's a very French institutional organization. And I think it's my duty to understand and to make myself understood. And now I'm at a stage where, given that I understand everything, people speak to me in French normally, and I answer in English. With very few people, I also speak French, the one that don't laugh when I do that. But I have to say that I started to study more seriously recently because at the beginning I started to take classes, but I was so at zero that I was useless. So my goal is by the end of 2021 to speak an okay French. I think I can do it. No, that was not it. Was never a problem, really.
That's a very admirable goal, and I can really understand how you fit into such a global world of fashion with such a global understanding of language and communication. Our next question is from Reno Hashimoto, who is studying comparative literature at Brown University over here. And he's from New York and asks, having worked at numerous luxury fashion brands, what industry similarities and dissimilarities have you identified?
You mean between the different brands,
yes.
Right? The thing that you learn is that each brand is different and they have different DNAs and origins, and you cannot apply the same formula. This I learned it immediately because moving from Prada, then within Prada to in Helmut Lang, and then Gucci, and what I was seeing being successful in one company could not be applied to the other one. But you had to take the time to really study what the brand positioning was and what the right strategy for the company was. The only thing that is successful everywhere is what we talked about before, the relationship with the creative director. That has always have to be authentic and based on trust and respect. This for me is the only way in every company. Then the rest, the less preconceived formulas you have, the better. I remember in the summer when I had to join Saint Laurent, because my position was announced in June, and officially I was starting in September. So it was a little bit like when you leave high school and you have to start university, that you are on holidays and you don't have homeworks or nothing to do. So I was receiving the numbers of Saint Laurent, starting and look at that, and I received so many calls from people say, congratulations. But when you go to Saint Laurent, you have to do this, 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 and that. And they all had incredibly clear what was supposed to be done in Saint Laurent. And I'm like, wow, maybe they should be the CEOs because I have no clue. So when I arrived, I actually took the time to listen and to understand where I was and work with the people that were already at Saint Laurent. I don't like it when the CEO moves from one company to another one, bringing the team, because why? You find amazing people wherever you go, and it's your duty to give to them the possibility to express themselves. So apart from building an authentic relationship with the creative director, for all the rest, there are no real similarities. Then we make similar products, but then the way you market the products, you position the products, you need to keep it yourself and as much different as possible from the others, not for the sake of being different, but because it's right for you. It's not said that what is right for another company is right for you. I see too many companies going into a direction simply because one is going there. The reality is that the ones that are successful are the ones that go in a certain direction because it's correct for their DNA. If you just go in a direction because everybody does it, somebody else would come and would do it better than you. Mm. So take your time to understand where you are and what are really the DNA and the positioning that your brand should have.
That authenticity is so important.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, totally.
So our next question is from Isabel Yablon. She is studying economics at Penn University. She calls home Manhattan. And Isabel asks, what brings you the most joy in your job?
Oh, that's easy. My team. Absolutely. It's my team, the people around me. I have so much fun in working with them, exchanging with them, getting mad at them, them getting mad at me. It's all very like with a lot of animosity and a lot of fun. I have to say, work a lot, but we also have fun in the job. And in this year, I was super lucky because I have a super strong team everywhere, and we remain very close. So this is really the biggest joy, starting from working with Anthony and Arnaud, and then all the other people in the company and my boss. Mm-hmm. I'm really, really lucky because in terms of environment and people that I have around, I look forward to see them. I mean, it's super important to be in an environment. We spend so long in the office or working that if you do not have the right environment and the right people around you, the right team, not only individual. It's important the sum of the people. It's becoming too difficult. I remember when I was in banking and we were interviewing newcomers among analysts, because we were senior analysts and we had to interview junior analysts. In order, when there were candidates that were all good and, you know, on paper and also from a technical standpoint, they could all be hired. We had this thing, like the last question you had to ask yourself because before you recommend or not the hiring. Would you spend a week with them? I'm not going to say the city because I don't know if there are people connected from that city, but it was a specific city that wasn't particularly nice in our mind. And you said, would you like to be missing your plane and be locked for a few days with this person in that city? And if the answer for whatever reason was no, you had to consider it because the personality fit is super important. And particularly when you're running a company, to make sure that every individual that you hire fits with the company, not only is good, but can fit with the culture of the company, it's super important. That's why I always say to the students, when you go for interviews, be authentic. Because in that moment, yes, the company chooses you, but you are also choosing the organization. And if you're not authentic, then you're not going to like it, or vice versa. So yeah, it's the team that makes me the happiest, definitely.
I mean, it truly sounds like a family. And I think that nowadays, more than ever, perhaps human connection and those relationships that we build are so important to get us through times like this in the workplace. Yes. Or at home or at university. So thank you for that advice. But I think we're going to shift on to our final question now, which is, you've obviously given a lot of good advice, but if you had one final piece of advice to impart to our young viewers in the audience today, what would it be?
Well, I spoke about be always authentic. Don't think that when you're going for an interview, you absolutely have to get the job. Try to really understand is that is the place where you want to be. Be always curious. Sometimes even the experiences that at the beginning seems insignificant are opportunities to learn. I remember before I joined banking, when I was in the university, I did an internship in Citibank. And my job was very simple. I had to reclassify annual reports all day. I was receiving annual reports and I had to reclassify it in a program that Citibank had, and they were generating an internal rating for the company. And it could have been a very boring job, but actually I had the time and I started to read some of the annual reports. And so I started to learn about different industries. And actually, when I interviewed for Goldman Sachs, and they asked me what I was doing in Citibank, very honestly, I said, what I was doing. What are you doing? I'm reclassifying annual report. I wasn't doing any, I mean, I didn't invent that I was a strategic decision maker for defining the rating of the company. No, I was reclassifying the annual report in the program of Citibank. And I remember the guy who was interviewing me that asked me, and do you like it? And I said, yes, I do, because I read. And actually, after I was hired, I was told that that was the question that made me hired in Goldman Sachs. Wow. Because they knew what the job was, because they knew that was a job that only an intern could do for a certain period of time. Citibank was always hiring intern for that. So they knew exactly what the job was, and they knew I hadn't invented anything. And the fact that I was liking it made them understand that I could have been a good junior analyst, being there and doing, presentations and numbers. And so you see, if I had been afraid that was not an important enough job I was doing at Citibank, and I had invented or just described the thing in a different way, I wouldn't have been in Goldman, I wouldn't have been in banking, and then Prada, and then all of that. So authenticity, for sure, curiosity out of what you are doing all the time, even when you feel depressed because you think you are wasting your time. No job is a waste of time. Even when you have bosses that you don't like, you can learn how you don't want to be. It's very simple. And be ambitious, yes, but don't be impatient. Things are going to come if you build them right. I love when people are ambitious, but I also think that if you are not impatient, and sometimes you allow for lateral moves, moves in which you don't only choose because of the money, but you actually and you look at the opportunity. This for me has been a winning move. And then again, the people, and the more you grow, the more you don't have to be afraid to hire people that are better than you on certain things, to work with people that are also better than you, understanding that confrontation is important. I mean, I love to grow people. I love to understand what is the talent in a person, and to try to make it flourish. Here at 𝐀𝐁𝐿, they call me the CEO factory, they call Saint Laurent, because the last 3 CEOs that 𝐀𝐁𝐿 has appointed in 3 other companies are coming from the management team of Saint Laurent, were people that were working with us here. And actually, we are all very proud of that, because this means that the whole team is strong. Because if you think about it, if only the individual is strong and makes too much of a difference in a company, François Ripineau would have never felt comfortable in taking the people, the bright people that are now CEOs of other companies, out of the organization. But I always say to my team, the fact that this happened means that we are all strong. Because even if in the last 7 years, 3 key people of the organization have become CEOs of other companies, we went on, we kept growing. So the strength is in the team. That allows the individuals to shine. And, so those are my simple advices, because this is what has been working for me so far.
Those are such beautiful words to end on. And I mean, you've shown, like, not only are you such a hard worker, but you can feel your love and spirit and passion for what you do and just for life and the people around you. And I know that it will resonate and inspire the Brown students, all students watching, anyone else in their life. And during this pandemic, so many people are questioning their place and purpose. And I think that what you've given us is so important. So thank you again. We're so honored. And for anyone tuning in, we have a lot more Brown Fashion Week events coming up. So tune in to our next events. And Ms. Bellettini, thank you so much.
Thank you to you for this time, for all the wonderful questions that gave me the opportunity to talk about a lot of things I really care. So It has been a fantastic experience also for me. I really hope that we can do this in person another time.
We would adore that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.